I'd like to introduce Christina and James. So James leads hiring and tech innovation at OMERS. And before that, he was also growing Shopify's data team. He also focuses on data. Well, he does focus on data, but he also focuses on diversity and inclusion and helps implement recruitment best practices. So James, thank you for being here. And Christina, thank you as well. Christina leads talent programs at Cohere, focuses on engineering, research, NLP talent, but she's also done this across a wealth of other companies, startups and large ones like Wealthsimple, Deloitte, Intuit, BMO, and more, and also is very passionate about lifelong learning and upskilling, which we've obviously been discussing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you both for joining us today. Before we actually go into the Q&A, I'd love to even hear from both of you. You've heard through this webinar, we've been talking about upskilling. We've been talking about the technical interview process. At the very start, we heard that literally like 90% of people here are actually like really nervous. If you had one or two pieces of advice to give to everyone on this webinar, what would they be? And James, maybe I'll start with you, if you can maybe kick off with your advice.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, awesome.
Perfect.
So what I would say is one piece of advice that I would try to give to anyone that's starting off looking for any jobs in AI and ML is to not try to do everything all at once. It's a pretty exciting field. There's lots of trends going around when it comes to generative AI and ChatGPT, but with high demand comes even higher expectations. And don't put that on yourself when you're first starting off. I would say use the crawl, walk, and run method, and just set up those foundational skills of programming and mathematics and algorithms before you get into the more advanced topics of machine learning models and transformers. And so that would be my one piece of advice.
That's wonderful. Christina.
Yeah, I love that. I love crawl, walk, run, James. I think that's a very great advice. But I mean, I would just say, I know it's nerve-wracking, but everyone's kind of rooting for you. And remember, a lot of you are in that same position. So I think, we're going to talk more about networking and so forth. But I do think networking and just continuing to always be learning, adding to, your skill set in your portfolio, I think is, great things to focus on. And generally, like, my favorite piece of advice is always just, you're not learning and growing if you're not feeling uncomfortable. So it might feel scary and uncomfortable, but when you're feeling that way, it's probably a good thing, right? You're doing the right things. So yeah, just do more of that, and the right opportunities will come.
And Christina, I'm curious from your perspective as you're talking about, especially portfolios, especially getting comfortable, like portfolios have come up in quite a few of the questions that have been submitted as well. What are some of the things that you're looking for when it comes to portfolios or when it comes to like projects that people have worked on in the past?
Yeah, good question. I think it's definitely something that is important to us, depending on the role that you're looking for at Cohere and what specific team, I think any well-related projects, whether it's school research stuff, whether it's a hackathon project even, or something you've just done in your free time, I think those things always stand out. And I think, from a portfolio perspective and just generally, like, your portfolio being a big part of just your personal brand. And I think for us, it is important that we have people that are just like super excited about the space and about LLMs and NLP at Cohere and excited about our mission. So I think any projects and the way that you kind of showcase that through your portfolio is really what stands out.
And is there a project that you've seen in the past that you're like, whoa, that was really cool?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like projects, so we do a ton of hackathons at Cohere, and we're like so passionate about that and building. So like truly it is like we love seeing your projects and we love seeing what you've built with Cohere and our APIs. And even in our application, we do ask you, like, have you ever built something with Cohere? If you have, drop the links, and all of our teams and hiring managers will look at those. So it's definitely a great piece of advice, like build something using that product and then, apply and make sure that's crisp in your application. But in terms of specific projects, yeah, just exciting things built with Cohere. We see that, often. But aside from that, I think I've seen just some really creative things, and, people send me videos to go along with like their project and their portfolio, or they have a really interactive sort of portfolio where it's like you travel around and visit like their different, skill sets and their different
Cool.
projects on like a little app or something like that. So I just think those things like definitely make you go, wow. I know it's not something, that is the norm, but I think for roles that you're really, really passionate about, take the extra bit of time to really try to make your portfolio and your application stand out, and it will go a long way.
I think the advice there too of if you're applying for a company that's building a technical product that you can use, you should probably use the product.
Definitely. I think
That's
it's not a
awesome.
great look when you get on the first call and it's like, oh, so have you ever built? And it's like, no, I haven't,
No,
gotten
yeah.
around to it. Oh, okay. So.
James, I'd love to hear in a similar way, especially since OMERS is I guess not a consumer-facing product in quite the same way, how you think about portfolios or projects in advance and how people stand out.
Yeah, no, great question. And, there is that difference because we aren't consumer facing and don't have products that are like AI and ML specific. And so when it comes to organizations like OMERS, or I would say different industry organizations that want to leverage AI and ML, I would say the most relevant types of portfolios and projects really emphasize business impact. And so when it comes to different organizations, a lot of them are really looking to see how AI and ML can make their business better, more efficient, have more profit for the most part, or reduce costs. And so utilizing and leveraging those in different projects, like, oh, well, I built this machine learning model in order to reduce the risk of investments by X amount, or by increasing profits by this amount. And it could be, you could even do these things on a personal level of building like AI machine learning models for your personal stock portfolio, and how that could be utilized and kind of overlap with any business impact projects and portfolio. So I'd say those are the ones that really stand out, how much the business impact is.
That's interesting. And is there a portfolio or a project that you've seen in the past that's really stood out to you from that perspective?
Yeah, I would say because we are heavy in the investment space. So, two things that we look at is reducing risk of investments, also increasing profit. So when we see individuals who have done that at other financial institutes, it's really, really good. And, we want to be able to bring those folks in and kind of do the same thing for our organization.
Very cool. And one of the questions, actually, there's a theme here, I would say, across multiple questions coming up, which is recent grads or even people who are still in school. OMERS, Cohere, like these are really exciting companies, maybe a little intimidating as well. How does a student get on your radar? And maybe, James, I'll start with you and we can go to Christina afterwards.
Yeah, I would say, to some of Christina's points earlier, is that networking is key, whether it's through the Vector Institute, through different conferences, through different communities. If you're able to network and get to know individuals within the organization, and a lot of people who are doing these roles right now, like data scientists or even managers or directors in those type of roles, are very open to coffee chats and meeting up with new grads and individuals. They're humans too, they love to connect and get to know more of the younger generation, and what sort of potential they come up with. And then when that connections happen and those relationships are built, a lot of times managers come up to me like, oh, I just met this great student, really eager, has done X, Y, and Z at their school in academics, and I think that they would be a great fit for this role that we have available.
One of the things that because you're mentioning coffee chats events as well. I know sometimes people get really nervous, especially at hiring fairs. You go to a booth and there's like 50 people there and you're not sure how to have the conversation. Are there other ways aside from, like, let's say a fair like that, like how if I were a student graduating and really interested in OMERS, how do I get that coffee chat, or how do I show that I'm serious when it comes to having a career with OMERS?
Yeah, so I would say that you don't always have to start off at the highest levels. You can even, reach out and connect with individuals who are maybe even just starting their career at an organization.
Mm.
So junior data scientists or junior machine learning engineers. And I think just being involved in the communities and the conferences, and then just practice overall, I think it's going to be really beneficial for individuals who are a little bit more, nervous and scared to kind of connect with individuals.
Oh, that's super helpful. I think, you raise a good point, which is that oftentimes when people think about reaching out, they're thinking of like C-level executive, VP. You don't have to start there. I love that. And, Christina, in a similar way, I mean, I know Cohere is in the news quite a bit right now. It's can be quite intimidating, and you probably get a lot of applicants right now as well. I'm gonna actually split the question into two for you, because there's new grads, like let's say PhD level grads, where they might be coming in through like a very research oriented approach. And then there's also probably folks finishing their undergrads where they'd love to work for a company like Cohere. Is there a place for them? And if so, how do they apply? How do they get on your radar?
I love the question. And, first off, what I'd like to say is, I know it's a hot time for us, and can be intimidating, and I can see that, and definitely a ton of interest in joining us and so forth, like we're seeing across this whole space. But we hire so many people from so many different backgrounds. It's absolutely incredible. So, and from a grad perspective, I always get the question from students and interns, like, do you hire first years? Do you hire second years? Do I need to have like hardcore ML experience or whatnot? And the answer is no. And we hire students at all levels. We've hired a multitude of first year students. We've hired a number of boot camp grads and boot camp students as well, college grads and students. And then you have, your masters and PhDs and so forth. So one, yes, there's absolutely a place for everybody. And, there's different teams and capabilities that are needed. And we love that diverse perspective. In terms of just getting on our radar and standing out, I think, for me, I've also been doing campus recruitment for the past like 10, 11 years. I've hired thousands of students at many orgs. And I would say at least 70-75% of all the students I've hired have often been folks that I've met at events or hackathons or conferences, like James has said. So I can't stress enough the value of community building and being at networking events and just like really embedding yourself into those things. You meet incredible people, especially hackathons for the more technical people, like anything where you can go build something with other people and do it in front of employers that you're interested in, I think is really great. So I think that's a great way to really make connections with the employers you're most interested in and really stand out, getting your face in front of somebody versus like just being the resume in, the pile. So yeah, definitely get out there, be networking. And even if it's not like personal face-to-face kind of stuff, Discord community, Slack groups. Cohere has a Discord community. We have our C4AI research community. We do like tech talks and reading groups and all this stuff. Like get involved in that, right? You're going to meet people and those people could lead you to those opportunities and those connections. So I think that's definitely a way to stand out, is just embed yourself in the areas that you're most interested in.
I think you've already referred to a few, but one of the questions coming up is what are some of those networking events that you would recommend? Are there specific ones that you're particularly excited about or look forward to in the coming weeks or months?
For sure. And that's a big part of my role as like a talent programs manager, is managing a lot of our events and partnerships. So one, we hit a lot of like the big research conferences and we have big presence there. So things like EMNLP, NeurIPS we will be at, ACL and all of those big conferences. And we're always, looking to meet great people there and also just stay on top of the great research and stuff that's going on in the industry. Hackathons as well. We plan a number of great hackathons all over campuses, and we do that from like a university perspective and like just a general population perspective. So if you're interested, hit up our website on Cohere. We have an events page and we do list out any of like our different tech talks, reading groups. We do stuff almost weekly. So great ways to build community and conferences, hackathons, any of the big ones like Collision. We had BPTN conference happening last week here. So just, all of those things are great.
Amazing. James, same question for you. Are there specific events or places where you're like, yes, this is the place to go if you want to work for OMERS or a company like OMERS?
Yeah, I would say, making sure that you follow the organization that you want to join and then look at all the affiliations and partnerships that they currently have. And so whether it's Cohere, whether it's OMERS, or whether it's another organization, you can really tell from the social media posts of what events that they go to. Christina just mentioned BPTN. I was at BFuture last week as well, and I posted it on social media with OMERS kind of posts. And then obviously we partnered up with the Vector Institute, so looking at those networking events. So if you tie back the organization with the partnerships and communities that are already embedded and involved with, I think that's going to be a really key way to go about it. I also like to see for AI and ML Kaggle competitions, and so that's a really big one that's utilized as well.
Do you have to win a Kaggle competition, or how good do you have to be before you're good enough for OMERS?
I think it's just being part of the community, being part of the competitions, putting yourself out there and showing your work, like Christina was mentioning, I think is the biggest step forward. But it doesn't hurt to win a competition or two.
Or two. Oh gosh. Okay. There's a really great question that was raised earlier that I'm very curious what both of you think. Are resumes still important? I'll let either of you jump in first, because that one's an interesting one.
That is a hot one. And I haven't thought about it in a while, but it's a good question. Generally, I think yes, I think, generally being able to put your best foot forward on your resume is very important, and to stand out to all those jobs you're applying to and make sure things are a great reflection again of you, your personal brand, your skill set. Being able to do that in a great way on your resume is important. Right. But again, yes, networking and the community, and kind of getting in front of people is especially important. But I do find even if it is, even through networking or referrals or whatnot, you get yourself into a process at a certain point, people are going to be looking at your resume and kind of referencing that. So yes, I do think it's still important. It needs to be the best reflection of you. And so oftentimes it is like the first perception of you, right? It's your first impression, and it is really important to me. James?
Yeah, no, those are some great points. One last point for partnerships and communities that I forgot to add is that we have a partnership with Microsoft, and so we go to a lot of Microsoft events and conferences as well. So that would be another good one. But when it comes to resumes, yes, resumes are still important. I think we are still slowly evolving on how resumes are, and so we've added a lot of other dimensions to it when it comes to having your own portfolio, having a website, but then also just LinkedIn in general. It's one of the it's the digital kind of resume, where we definitely evolved from what it was before, where it was all paper resumes, and that's all there was. But I think it's incorporating more different mediums and into your resume. So you'll see a lot on resumes now that they'll have a link to the LinkedIn, they'll have a link to the website or portfolio projects, and so making sure that you incorporate those digital aspects to your resume will evolve it, and it'll still continue to be used.
Amazing. And earlier on in this presentation, we also talked a lot about skills that employers might be looking for. So again, a two-parter here. When it comes to emphasizing skills on a resume, I know sometimes people have tables where they say, here are literally my skills. Sometimes they self-rate themselves. Question one is, how do you recommend people present their skills? And question two, as part of that, is also, are there specific skills that today, when you see a resume, you're like, yes, like that is the skill that I want to interview for, or that is the skill that shows a person has the expertise we're looking for? James, maybe you can start here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I caught some of your presentation when it comes to being more skills-based and skills-based hiring. And it's definitely been a huge trend. And, we're looking towards that into the future, like the rest of the industry. And I would say in regards to technical skills specifically on a resume, I think at least for us, we like to see it, at the very top as an overall technical skill set, but then also incorporating how you used it in different companies or different academic projects is very important as well, because if you just list out, 100 different technical skills, but you don't really showcase how you use each technology and each skill, it's redundant at that point, and so it doesn't make any sense. So if you use Python, it's like, oh, how did you use Python? Oh, I use Python to build machine learning models, and then for this data science solution for X impact, right? And so I say utilizing it in that fashion is really beneficial.
Okay. And are there specific skills, technical or non-technical, where they're particularly exciting when you see them on the resume today?
I would say right now, how people use Python programming is definitely very key, but then also machine learning frameworks and libraries, and which ones they are experienced with and which ones they utilize. I think it's been very helpful when kind of analyzing resumes.
Excellent. Christina, same question. How to present those skills in a resume, and what are the skills that you're particularly excited about when you see them?
Yeah, for sure. So I am very much aligned to all of James's points. Definitely, I would say that you want to have those skills highlighted at almost the very top, if not, the beginning of your resume. I see it a lot, and especially with students sometimes where they have it at like the very bottom of their resume. So just think about resume in general, like order your skills and everything in order of importance. I always say, like, what would you want that recruiter to see first or to stand out first, and make sure that's then on the top. So in terms of skills, I think usually pretty important when it comes to the technical stuff. And similar to what James has said, I think, yeah, it's really important that you actually showcase where you have used those technical skills. How long have you used those technical skills, right? Or, so, because you could be familiar with certain languages, but maybe you haven't used them in 6 years. Do you keep that on your resume, right? Or so I think like having a skills section is great near the top, and then also in those job specific experiences, whether it's project specific or it's like just, I worked at Cohere, here are the main technologies or like frameworks that I used, and then listing out the projects. But yeah, kind of embedding that into the actual like your bullet points as well to see how you've applied is important. And for us, I think in terms of skill sets, like, when we're talking about like ML heavy folks and researcher ML engineers, obviously any experience working with transformers and familiarity there is important, or is, stand out for those specific roles, and, having specific experience with things like JAX and transformer technologies, and yeah, just familiarity with things like general model training, pre-training, things like that. So not to say that we require all of that knowledge or skills at every level, but for certain roles, like those would be some of the really standout things. In addition to research experience as well, so whether you're even just on software engineering or MLE side, like having a little bit of depth into research, whether published or not, I think is also a standout. And like James's other points, I would also say, again, like not just on your resume, but really important on your LinkedIn as well, to really be able to communicate those skills. And it's where you can kind of maybe like add a little bit more flavor or tone to like the projects you did and what technologies you use. But it's really important to your LinkedIn, your resume, your GitHub, all of those things together, and showcasing your skills in the best way.
Great. And oh, go
So
ahead.
I wanted to add one interesting point to Christina's first point about the structure and then points of your resume. Just for everyone to know that the average recruiter spends about 6 to 8 seconds reviewing resumes. And so the order of importance and the structure does matter. So if you're keeping things, your resume is too long, or you're keeping things at the bottom that are super important, they may be overlooked.
Great point.
And
Jane, yeah, please.
We're so passionate about this topic, obviously, but
I love it.
Thing I would say, because I don't want it to just, definitely not always just about the technical skills and those standout skills, but in terms of the soft skills, things that really stand out to me, and especially as a campus recruiter and looking at student profiles, is the folks that have that project experience or are really showcasing they love to learn and like lifelong learning. So students, especially when you're part of different community groups, you're going to hackathons, you're building projects on the side, or you even showcase, hey, I recently took this course on Coursera or LinkedIn, whether how long or short it was, put it on your resume. Like, I want to know you're doing stuff outside of the classroom and you're really like, passionate about the space. And that really stands out to us too. So thank you.
I love that. I think that enthusiasm, if there's like a meta theme that I'm noticing, it's like when people love learning this stuff and they're truly passionate about it, it's going to show up. Like you can sense it, right? In the resume, they have portfolios. It's not like a burden for them necessarily, and they're curious. So they show up on the Discord channel, or they show up at the networking event, and they're happy to have a coffee. So I love that. Well, Christina, James, thank you both so very, very much for joining us today. I do know that you're both actively hiring, so I will encourage everybody here to go to the Cohere and the OMERS website and apply for the right role, not all the roles, but the right role. And hopefully folks reach out to you as well if they have any questions or anything else that they might need help with.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Bye.
So I will jump back into a very quick screen share. The very last thing that I will say is thank you, everybody, for powering through with us for an hour and a half. If there are questions that we didn't answer, feel free to shoot me an email at w@phaseai.com. And also, I want to say thank you to the Vector Institute and all of its supporters and funders as well. This was a fun event, and I hope it's helpful for everyone attending. So I hope you all have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend, and see you in a few months.